All right, Parm, welcome to the show. Happy to have you here.
Glad to be here. Looking forward to having a chat with you.
Yeah, likewise, and I like speaking with people, overseas because it's always interesting to see how construction may differ or business may differ if it does. Because a lot of things, there's definitely some synergies, but it's always great to see what's happening in other parts of the world. So I'm excited about that part as well. In order to get started, though, I always like to start with yourself, get to know a little bit about you, why construction, what brought you to this point where you are right now, what was a catalyst for this journey, perhaps, anything you want to share. You go back as far as you want to, right?
So construction for me, it wasn't the go-to. My family weren't in construction. I didn't really know many people in construction. When I was in school, I had interest in buildings. I had interest in property. I had interest in finance. But I never kind of knew which way I wanted to go. Now, obviously, I graduated as a quantity surveyor, which is a bit of construction, well, a lot of construction, a bit of money, and it had everything that I kind of wanted. But to get into that position, I needed to find a career. So from school, done some work experience with a construction firm, essentially, working in their offices, working as an estimator QS. They went on to provide me with an apprenticeship. I done university, graduated as a quantity surveyor, and essentially went on there on my journey in construction. I had a great boss, and then I left to work in central London, where I had an absolutely awful boss. And at that point, I decided, actually, I feel like what I do should be valued at more than what I'm getting here, and I'm unhappy. And at that point, I decided to set up my own business in construction. In construction consultancy. But yeah, that was my journey into construction. So it wasn't family led, or it wasn't kind of I was pushed into that direction. I kind of knew I wanted to go into building buildings.
Yeah, and why, for those who might not know what a quantity surveyor is, maybe explain that a little bit, because it doesn't come up too often in residential, in the residential world. I know it's bigger in the commercial world, bigger projects. So it's not something that personally we use. I think we used quantity surveyor once, maybe in 20 years that I've been in the residential world here. So yeah, maybe share a little bit about that.
I think the thing about quantity surveyors is it's different every. And so I know in America, our job role is referred to as a cost engineer. So what we do as a quantity surveyor is look at construction costs, so budgeting. We look at construction contracts. We look at managing the project effectively from start to finish. So when you say quantity surveyors, even here in the UK, it's more driven towards larger residential projects. Quite a lot of homeowners use us, but it's used here a lot because each side, so the contractor and the homeowner, both have a QS or a contract administrator of sort to ensure that someone's got their back. It's a bit like having a real estate agent. It's to ensure that you're protected. My whole career in construction consultancy has been talking about numbers and number crunching construction numbers. So what that does is gives my client the confidence that I'm able to deliver a construction project within a good budget, because that's all we've ever done. And paying a consultant to do that is worth its weight in gold, and we see that time and time again, hence why we run a very, very successful business in it.
So has it been difficult over the last few years? Because lots has changed. We saw prices skyrocket material wise. And as someone in your position, if you're guaranteeing work or guaranteeing a price, I don't know how that works. Is there insurance? Like, there's so many variables, right? There's a million different things that could happen, especially over an extended period of time, right? And if you're trying to to plan a project that maybe the project takes 2 years, a lot can change just throughout the length of that project, let alone from when you price it to when the construction actually starts.
Mhm. Absolutely agree. The last couple of years post-COVID has been very challenging. And one thing I like to, the way I like to express this is post-COVID hasn't been about being a good QS or being a good estimator or being a good cost consultant. It's just been about being a good person and being a good leader. Because anyone in the industry, anyone out of the industry has, unless you don't know and you haven't got any of the news in front of you, everyone's known that construction costs have been skyrocketing. Everyone's known that things have got difficult. So at that point, you don't need to educate people on the fact that things are going up. You need to educate them on the fact that, look, we've started a project, it isn't going the way we want it to go. That is nobody's fault. It's not the contractor's fault. It's not the homeowner's fault. But ultimately, as a deliverable, we need to get to the end of this project with as minimal problems as possible. We need to ensure that the client gets their property built for a reasonable price, and we've got to make sure that the contractor don't go bust in the process. Yeah. So it just has to be fair and open book. Now, that's got nothing to do with being good at my job. That's got everything to do with just being a good human being and trying to get everyone on the same page to ensure we get to where we need to get to. So yes, it's been incredibly challenging. And yes, there's been lots of arguments, and yeah, there's been lots of feeling towards, oh, am I getting ripped off? But ultimately, it's about getting to the position where we need to be, which is successfully completing a project as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, that's a really good point, right? And hopefully you have good clients as well, right?
Absolutely.
There's some that are just not understanding, and they're set in their ways, or they've thought they got something stuck in their head, and they're not willing to budge, which makes it quite difficult, for someone in your position as well as the contractor and any other subcontractor that's on the job.
Yeah, not only that, look, unfortunately, contractors and builders and people in the building industry haven't really got the greatest reputation. We have programs in the UK like road traders and cowboy builders and people ripping you off and all this sort of stuff happening. Well, that doesn't give anyone in our industry a good name. And when that's happening, the client's automatic mind frame is that this is going to be painful. They're ripping me off, no matter how good their contractor is, and no matter how long they've had a relationship for, because the society has told you that that's what's happening. That's what goes through your mind. So it's about managing them expectations. So clients also understand that, look, if someone is trying to rip you off, I will pull it out of them, and I'll make sure that that doesn't happen. But we need to be fair with them, because the fairer we are with them, the easier the project will be. If we start being difficult with them and start saying that, well, no, you need to do this for X amount, when I know it's physically impossible to do it for that, they're also not going to play ball with us.
Right. Now, how would you manage that? Let's talk a little bit about that, because that's where it gets difficult, right? So a lot of what it sounds like your job is as well is just managing people's expectations, right? And it's not so much, like you said, about being really good at your job. That helps, and that's important, is to make sure that you're good at what the service that you're providing. But at the end of the day, people are people, right? And there's a lot of different personalities that we're going to have to deal with. Now, I don't know what size your team is. I'm assuming you have a team that's working with you. How do you navigate that? Do you get training for your team? Are you the one doing it? Like, what's the best way as a business? That people side of things is so important these days, I find, when it comes to any business, but especially construction, when inevitably something's going to happen, right? It's not a vacation. There's going to be problems, and people are going to have to deal with them. And the problems are usually because of the people to begin with. That's to some level, right?
100%. Our team is 31 people in our office, excluding obviously all the subcontractors and all the contractors we work out house, but in house we're 31 people. In terms of training, it's for me, the main thing is setting out systems, processes, and procedures. Ultimately, our go-to is always forget the problem. The problem is the problem, but what's the solution? So to every problem, my team know that we never go to a client with a problem without at least two solutions. So we'll pitch the problem, two solutions, and then we'll decide which one's best for the client. And if they're not happy with either, then we go and find some more solutions. But the worst thing you could ever do is go to a client with this is a problem and just a full stop, because that is not going to go down well with anyone, because you set panic in. It feels to the client like you've approached them without even thinking about what's going on, and that's a massive problem. So we always encourage our team, and we train our team that, right, okay, cool, we've got problems, that's fine. What's the solutions? We'll put it together as a package and we'll take it to the client, and then we'll figure out how we're going to deal with it.
Yeah, because and the solutions don't even necessarily have to be the ones that get selected at the end, right? The point is showing that, look, we got a problem. We've already put thought into this. What do you think? Right. Yeah. So that's great. We talk about the same thing with our team as well, because and I warn them, like, don't go with the bad news if you don't have something to back it up and how to fix it, right? Because their minds are going to go all over the place. And make sure if there is bad news, they come up with those solutions as soon as possible, because if they find out and they bring it to you, that's even worse. And
sometimes it's the thing is, like, we know construction, we understand construction. When you go to a client, you talk about, oh, this foundation isn't right because this is happening or that's happening, and the DPC ain't built up right. And the client's looking at you like, I don't even know what you're talking about, mate. Like, I just need you to fix the problem. Like, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. And sometimes in construction, we end up talking to people as if they understand how a building's built. But a building's built with thousands of products, hundreds of different people. How is a lay person or someone that doesn't understand construction expected to know that the screw is too long and that's caused us problems, and this has happened and that's happened, which has meant this? They're like, I don't know what you're talking about, mate. Like, buy a shorter screw. What's the problem? Yeah. You have to educate your client so they understand what the issue is, and not just be in a position where they're like, well, I don't get it. You have to tell them these are the problems and put it into terminology that they understand. Likewise, go with the solutions. We can't just assume that everyone understands construction, and that's what I find a lot of contractors, even here in the UK, they talk to clients as if clients know what they're talking about when they absolutely don't.
It's kind of like your doctor coming to your side of your bed and telling you what's going on and using all the words so you have no idea. Right?
Exactly, like, all them long words. Yeah, you just sat there and like, I don't know what you're talking about, mate. Can you like dumb this down for me a little bit, please?
That's a good point. All right, so I want to shift gears a little bit. So you have the consultancy as well. So these are two separate businesses, just so I'm clear, right? So you have your quantity surveying, but you also have consultancy where you're working with businesses to help them implement these processes and systems and so forth, and to get them essentially operating without them, as turning them from business operators into business owners, correct?
Correct. And I actually started that post-COVID, because when COVID hit, so I've had my consultancy for 13 years now, set that up 13 years ago. And when COVID hit, the construction industry, everything stopped. And having 31 staff, our overhead is massive. And I was like, oh, what is going on here? Like, how are we going to survive? We've got a massive wage bill. How are we going to survive? And the type of person I am is think outside the box. Let's see what we can do. So what I started doing was little self-help videos. Like, if you're in a contract, these are the things you need to do to ensure that although your site might be shut, you need to ensure you oblige to your contract obligations and you do all these bits. And I started making videos, and people started calling in the office like, oh, I need more of this information. It's really good information. And then I thought, actually, there's a lot of people. When I started talking to more and more people, I started realizing that a lot of people need help. they're running their day-to-day businesses, and they're running them themselves. They're working hard, they're getting by, but actually they're not understanding the fundamentals of a business. The fundamentals of a business, any business, is that realistically, for it to be a viable business, it needs to be able to operate without you for at least a short amount of time. And most of the contractors that I speak to, they're not in that position. Their business just does not operate without them for even a week. And that's very scary, because just like we've seen with COVID, anything can happen to anyone at any time. And the last thing you want is to get, touch wood, ill health, family issues, someone in the family ain't well, something happens, and all of a sudden you had a thriving business, but actually, because of this thing that's happened in your life, which is completely out of your control, your business is going to go down because of it as well. And I was really passionate about helping people to get them out of that situation, even to a position where you could just go, right, okay, it may not operate 100% without me, but I know it will operate 70% without me. At least we'll get by. And a lot of people weren't even in that position. If they dropped out of their business just would not operate at all.
Yeah, which in my mind is not a business. It's just a job that has more stress than any other job you can have if you just go and work for somebody else, right? Because you take on that responsibility. So in my mind, I think that's actually a necessity, or that should be what business owners are striving for, just because of the fact that they should be setting something up to protect their team, right? And their families, and taking on that responsibility. I had a meeting with my team recently and showing them, like, the further you kind of, we have these hierarchies in business, right? And we're kind of showing where everybody was. And I took it and I said, look, this is how you guys see it, but this is, in reality, this is how it looks. And I flipped it upside down, right? So technically it's, instead of the top down approach, you have to flip it upside down, and the people at the top should actually be serving the people going up, right? And making sure that they have what they need and going from there, which is definitely aligned with what you're saying. I think you were about to say something else though.
Yeah, I think for me, the fundamentals of business, like you just said, is that it operates without you. If it doesn't do that, then you have just bought yourself a job, and a very difficult one, because being a business owner doesn't just require you being a builder. It requires you being a marketeer. It requires you being an accountant. It requires you being a builder. It requires you being PR, HR. It requires all them different things. So you have to learn lots of different skills very, very quickly. And that's the bit that people forget. And it's very sad when I see people and I meet loads of people that have got hugely, hugely successful businesses, but they're just running around wild. And unfortunately, they're running themselves into the ground. They're being put in a position where there's every chance they could be not well because of the stress and the impact that the business is having on them. And then at the end of it all, they actually haven't even got a business that's going to be able to operate without them. And that's the really sad thing for me. And that they're the people that I really want to help to build a structure and a system to ensure that that very successful business continues to be very successful, but essentially operating in a way that can do so without them.
Now, how do you get people to that point? Somebody reaches out and they want to work with you. They need some support. They're stuck in the business. They're definitely a business operator. Where do people start? What are the first steps? How quickly can this happen? Is it different depending on the type of construction that they do, or the type of trade that they're in? What's your process for that? Because it sounds like it could happen fairly quickly. You still need to have a good foundation, I'm assuming. But I'd love to know what you're thinking, what your process is to get people thinking about how to get there. Because a lot of people might be looking at this and be like, I don't have time, right? I just got to go do the work.
Yeah. The first couple of things I do is I look at the things that someone's really good at and the things like they feel that they're really not so good at. So that's the first two things: their skills and what they feel like they're not so skillful at. And then I do what's called a 30-day diary. So for 30 days, you slot your diary out every single day in 1 hour slots, and we write down exactly what you've done every single hour for the entire month. And then I have a chat with you. I look at your diary and I go, right, okay, by employing one member of staff or this one person, I can save you 10 hours a week, right? If we do that and I save you 10 hours a week, I need you to give me back the 10 hours a week to put it into systems and processes, and I'm going to help you to do that. So a lot of the time, people are running around and doing stuff that actually they shouldn't be doing. They just don't need to be doing it. They could probably get someone else to do that for them, get someone else to plug the gap, structure their day better, have, like, the one thing that people are really not very good at is setting up meetings with themselves. Sometimes I have to set meetings with myself. Like 9 to 11 is Parm's meeting with Parm, where no one can set a meeting up with me. And Parm's meeting with Parm is going to be about business strategy, business structure, business growth. And in that 2 hours, I don't take calls, I don't take emails, I don't do anything. Everyone in my team knows he's got a meeting. It might be with himself, but he's got a meeting. We can't approach him. And you need to build time like that into your week to be able to then get to the next level. And I know if I looked at anyone's, pretty much anyone, 30-day diary, I could shave 10 hours a month off that very, very easily without even looking at it too much. And I could probably do 20 to 25 with not too much difficulty. And once you get to that level where you're saving them kind of hours, then once we take them hours back, we then go, right, okay, these are the hours we're using to make your business systemized, structured, and put it in a position where you've got the processes in place. Now it's about building the team.
And then that would be, I'm assuming, just for their work day, right? So if they're working 8 to 6, whatever their hours are, we're just tracking the hours for that. And then it could help in their personal life too.
Yeah, it could, and a lot of the time it does help in personal, but I'm looking for people to track people's work day and what they're doing and how efficient they are with use of their time. Because a lot of people feel like they're efficient with use of their time, but they're actually not. There's so much resource out there in the world that as long as you know how to use your time effectively, you can go on to set out systems and processes with the help of other people. There's people per hour, there's Fiverr, there's lots of different websites where you can find virtual PAs and you can have all this stuff at very minimal expense. You know, a simple thing, builders and contractors, they probably spend most of their day in the car, especially the ones in the UK, going around site to site. Well, use that time, voice record stuff, get it typed up, it's done. But instead, we're probably going to listen to that radio in that time. Like, it's just efficient and effective use of time to ensure that we can then use them to create the policies, procedures, systems, and processes to go on to have a business that will run without you. It's the most important thing.
So once you go through that, those 30 days in the diary, you save them 10 to 25 hours a month. You know, where do we go from there? Like, you hiring somebody? I'm assuming you kind of answered the money question, which is, you know, what if they think they can't afford it? Usually you can find somebody that's pretty cheap and you can replace that with some other money-making activity, right? Where do people go from there? So this is going to be kind of a process that I'm assuming you can make it happen fairly quickly if people are committed to it.
Yeah, so the next thing from there for me is the big one. It's the money. What do you want? How much money? Have you actually worked that out? We look at people's life living costs. You know, what is it costing you? Is it costing you $10,000 a month, £10,000 a month, 15? What do you want? What does your life look like? And then we work backwards from there. Okay, so right, you need 10,000 out of your business. Cool, no problem. That's 120,000 a year. And this is just, you know, some people's money is 4 times, 5 times this. I'm just giving you an example. So we go, okay, you need 100K a year. Cool, no problem. So 100K a year equates to £500,000 worth of construction work at a 20% profit margin. Okay. How do we deliver £500,000 worth of construction work over a 12-month period? How many leads do we need into business? How many estimates and tenders do we need to do? What's our conversion rate from doing the sale to actually cash flow? And we work them numbers back to go, right, okay, this is where you're at, this is what you need, this is how we need to now drive the business forward. Because at the moment, you might be bringing 10 leads in, or we need to take that to 15. Once we get that to 15, we need to fine-tune our estimating process to ensure we win more work. And that's how you then start, because once you start building them puzzles and then pieces into business owners' minds or people's minds, they're like, oh, actually, that don't sound too difficult. It's having the plan written out so we know what the target is. Most builders and contractors that I've met, they're like, well, yeah, we do all right. And we're going to put another 10, 20% on all right next year. All right, well, how long are you going to carry on doing that for? Because there don't seem to be a plan here. We need a plan and we need an exit. So we need to like have a 5-year plan of how we're going to execute this and the people and the money we need in the positions to get us to where we need to be.
Are there certain industries or like trades that are easier to do this in than others? Like, for example, we're a general contractor, but, you know, you can break that down into, you know, there's framers, electricians, plumbers, mechanical, drywallers, insulate, like all of those things, right? And all of those, one company could kind of do all of that, right? We do a lot of work in-house, but there's also companies that can just focus on those things as well.
It's general contractors and builders, they're not that difficult to do because the numbers are usually bigger. So if you look at a subcontractor, then you know, you might get a £100,000 job, but they're only getting 5K of that. So they need much more in volume to get to the level that they want to be. But within that, there's certain sectors that are highly profitable. So like electricians and plumbers and mechanical contractors, they're highly profitable businesses. So they're a dark part, you know, they're within the industry, that's a difficult part. So because they're highly profitable, you can often get them there quite quickly, because as long as they're good, they can put their fingers into lots of pies and get them to convert a lot quicker, as long as they systemize their business well. Plus, with people like them, they can get their foot in the door quicker with maintenance contracts and things like that. So that's when we start looking at different types of avenues into your business. So, you know, maintenance contracts might be like, they're recession proof, essentially. You know, maintenance is always going to be needed, but a general contractor typically hates doing maintenance because they're like, well, that's like £100 job. I want 100,000 job, not £100 job. But they don't realize if recession ever hits or we get into a negative, it's them 100K jobs that disappear very quickly. So you need to have a balance of stuff that's churns quicker and stuff that's high value, but balance it out, not to put all your eggs in one basket. So it is easier to do it. It's nice to do it with a general contractor. It's a little bit harder to do with subcontractors, apart from electrical and mechanical companies who we find quite easy to coach through that process.
Right, that makes sense. Now, within your business, you've been in business, well, you have a couple businesses, a few businesses, actually. I was looking at some of your stuff. What are some challenges? You mentioned one challenge, you know, when COVID hit and work came down, but are there any challenges that have really tested you over the years to, you know, something that stands out that you had to overcome that made you a better person? How'd you get through that?
That's a really good question. I think bar COVID, I can't say there's one specific challenge that sticks out. You know, within the business, there's always challenges. In the last couple of years, one of the biggest challenges for us has been, especially in the UK here, has been recruitment. Trying to recruit the right people. Obviously, you know, we left Europe. That left us in not the greatest position ever, because a lot of people working in construction were from Europe, and that left us in a position where we were short on the people that we needed to get the job done. I think the hardest bit of growing a business that can run without you is building a team that can effectively do everything you need them to do. And the reason why I say effectively, because I know dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of business owners that will say, I can't recruit well enough. I can't find the right people. And I always question, is it you can't find the right people or you haven't trained them well enough? Because you can't expect someone to come into your office and sit in your office and go, I need you to do this, and then just leave them. Because what's going to happen is they're going to do it in a way that they've been taught before. And when that happens, you're going to be disappointed. And so recruitment, people think that the buck stops when you've got someone sat in a chair in your office. It doesn't. That's when it starts. That's when that bit starts. So the biggest challenge in growing any business, and I've got businesses in multiple sectors. I own 7 different businesses. We have almost 100 staff across them. The biggest challenge is getting the right people. But once you've got the right people, training them well, and then retaining them and motivating them to stay. Because all of them 4 together is what gets you to that position, and you have to have a skill in doing that. So the biggest challenge for us certainly has been people. And I think most business owners that you talk to will say the biggest challenge is the people.
Yeah, and building that culture, right? And it requires a lot of time and commitment, right, from the people at the top to make sure that it's going to work.
100%.
What are you most excited about for the future? You know, it could be any. You mentioned you had 7 different businesses. Is there something within those businesses that you're excited about, or something within an industry, or just technology-wise, just anything? You know, what's got you super excited about just being in your business?
I think technology is something that really excites me, because I look at it and, you know, I look at construction. Construction's quite backwards when it comes to technology. We don't embrace technology quick enough. We're all working in methods that are 20 years old, 50 years old, 100 years old, and we're working in their methods still. And we see other industries plowing forward. And it's a bit like, well, actually, when is that going to happen in construction? Everyone always fears that technology is going to make them lose their jobs, but that's not necessarily correct. Technology just makes the process more efficient in a lot of ways. So I'm loving the way technology is evolving. I'd like to embrace it more within our industry. And I'm just excited about the future of our business. Like I said at the beginning, I like to think outside the box. I like to think about how things are going to progress. And when I look at the next generation of people coming into my business, the talent I see coming through is incredible. But it takes the right type of person to pull that out of people. And that's what you've got to be able to be good at. You have to be able to pull that talent, because that's what's going to make you thrive in the future. And as long as you're in a position where you're pulling in the right talent and you're pulling the incredible stuff they have in them to make your business better, it doesn't really matter that they're younger. It matters about what you get out of them. And also the other thing I say, it doesn't actually matter how much of the business you own. I could give away 50% of my business this year to my team. And as long as next year the business doubles, I've not lost a single thing. So a lot of the time people don't think about business in the right way. And I'm excited for the future of our businesses because we've got a lot of incredible young talent. And I'm excited to bring them into roles and responsibilities where they can flourish and continue to grow the business.
Well, Parm, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. You're obviously full of wisdom and you have a lot of experience. So I love everything that you've been sharing. if people want to get in touch with you on any of the businesses, if they want to consult, if they need a quantity surveyor, if they're in the UK, where's the best place to go? Or places? Sounds like there might be a few.
Yeah, so on all social media, Parm Bhangal on Instagram, on Facebook. If you type my name in on Google, I'll be everywhere on Google. www.parmbhangal.co.uk. You can just type my name in on Google and you'll find me somewhere. Follow me on Insta. I'll put lots of content out there. And if anyone ever needs any help, reach out. Always happy to ping back a voice note or ping back a message and help in any way that I can.
Amazing. Parm, thank you so much for being on the show today. Really appreciate it.
Lovely to be on the show.
Did you know that on average, year after year, over the last 10 years, electricity has gone up by 20% across the US? If you live in the US and you want to beat the utility company at their own game, I have partnered with Apricot Solar and Freedom Forever to save you thousands of dollars. Because of high tax incentives and solar decreasing in costs by 50% over the last 10 years, there has never been a better time to add solar to your home. If you're interested in seeing if your home qualifies, you can head to theconsciousbuilder.com/solar. And don't worry if you don't have the money up front. As I mentioned before, there are great financing options that can get you solar for $0 up front. Once again, that's theconsciousbuilder.com/solar. Until next time, I'm Casey Gray, and remember to live consciously.